You wake up and feel it again. That tight knot in your throat. A pressure in your chest that doesn't seem to go away. Your hands are trembling slightly. Your heart racing even though nothing stressful has happened yet. You sit up in bed, trying to breathe deeply, hoping it's just temporary. But the more you try to calm down, the more your body seems to rebel. So you start wondering, is this anxiety? Am I having another panic episode? You've done the tests. The cardiologist said your heart is fine. The neurologist didn't find anything wrong. Your blood work looks normal. And yet, there's that familiar sensation creeping in again, like something is wrong, even though everything appears right. So you accept what they tell you. It's probably anxiety, stress, age, maybe menopause, maybe depression, maybe something unresolved in your past. You leave the doctor's office with another prescription, maybe for a benzodiazepine or something just to help you sleep. But deep down, something doesn't sit right. Because this doesn't feel like a panic attack. It feels physical, real, unignorable. And that's because it is. What no one told you, what most doctors never even check, is that your stomach might be the one sending out all the alarms. The knot in your throat, the racing heart, the tension in your chest, the unexplained fatigue, the need to constantly clear your throat. These can all be symptoms of acid reflux, and in people over 50, especially women, these symptoms often appear without any burning sensation. No heartburn, no sour taste, just a cocktail of discomforts that mimic emotional distress, but are actually rooted in inflammation and dysfunction deep inside the digestive system. The connection between your stomach and your brain isn't abstract. It's biological. The vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in your body, acts like a two-way highway between your gut and your brain. It doesn't just send messages from the brain down to the body. It also sends messages from the gut up to the brain. So when your stomach is inflamed, overloaded, compressed, or producing too much acid, it doesn't stay silent. It sends emergency signals to the brain. But the brain doesn't interpret those signals as reflux. It reads them as fear, anxiety, urgency, the exact same feeling you'd get if you were being chased by something dangerous. Now imagine this happening every day, not because you're actually in danger, but because your stomach is quietly irritated. Imagine waking up and immediately drinking coffee on an empty stomach, or skipping breakfast, or eating bread and butter, and then rushing out the door. These small choices, repeated daily, can slowly destabilize your digestive system, especially after 50, when your mucosal lining is thinner, your enzyme production is lower, and your body no longer compensates the way it used to. Let me tell you about Maria. She's 62, retired, and had been suffering from chest tightness and what she called invisible panic for nearly 5 years. She'd been through cardiologists, psychologists, even spiritual counseling. She tried yoga, meditation, antidepressant, and yet the symptoms persisted. One day, while visiting a functional medicine doctor, someone finally asked her about her digestive habits. Turns out, she had been drinking 2 cups of strong coffee every morning on an empty stomach for decades, often with aspirin for her arthritis. Her lunch was late. Her dinners were heavy. She had mild constipation. But because she didn't feel classic heartburn, she never considered reflux. After just 2 weeks of dietary adjustments, including stopping the morning coffee, spacing her meals, and introducing gentle herbal teas, her symptoms began to vanish. The anxiety she had lived with for years was actually her stomach begging to be heard. What's disturbing is how common this is. How many people are medicated for anxiety when their digestive system is inflamed? How many live in fear of their own body, thinking they're emotionally unstable, when the real issue is physiological, not psychological? And here's something even more shocking. Acid can climb silently. It doesn't always come with fire. It can rise up into the throat and larynx, causing constant throat clearing, hoarseness, difficulty swallowing, and even what feels like a lump in the throat, a condition known as globus pharyngeus. You may think it's stress, but it might be bile. You may think you're having a heart problem, But it might be your esophagus reacting to years of microdamage. It's a slow burn that leaves no scar you can see, but it changes the way your body functions, breathes, and sleeps. The reason it often gets misdiagnosed is because reflux in people over 50 often stops being about food and starts being about timing, posture, and the nervous system. Eating too late at night, lying down too soon after dinner, sleeping flat, breathing shallow, holding tension in your abdomen. All of these contribute to internal pressure that forces stomach contents upward, even if you don't feel it as acid. That pressure activates the vagus nerve, which then activates the brain's threat response system. And before you know it, you're in a spiral of false panic, triggered by your gut, not your mind. And all of this gets worse with age, not because you're weaker, but because your protective layers have thinned. The mucus that once lined your stomach with a thick protective coat is now reduced. The valve that's supposed to keep acid from rising, the lower esophageal sphincter, weakens with age, stress, and certain medication. The result? A perfect storm for misinterpreted symptoms, unnecessary medications, and years of silent suffering. What if that pit in your stomach was more literal than emotional? What if your anxiety was simply your body's desperate way of getting your attention? The body doesn't speak in words, it speaks in symptoms, and when we don't listen, it speaks louder. The goal is not to fear what you're feeling, but to understand it, to finally see that your body might not be broken, just misunderstood. And when that shift happens, everything begins to change. You wake up again and clear your throat. It's become so routine you don't even notice it anymore. That little cough, the subtle rasp in your voice, the dry feeling that no amount of water seems to soothe. For some, it's an occasional nuisance. For others, it's every single morning. And still, most people brush it off, as if it's just part of aging, part of life, part of something unimportant. But when your voice feels tired before the day has even begun, when you catch yourself needing to clear your throat during every conversation, when you feel a tickle or tightness in your neck with no sign of a cold or flu, that's when something deeper is happening. And the deeper you look, the more you begin to realize it has nothing to do with your lungs, your throat, or even your emotions. It's your stomach. It sounds strange, even unbelievable, but it's called silent reflux. And it's one of the most commonly missed causes of voice problems, throat discomfort, and that chronic feeling of pressure in your chest or neck. The acid doesn't burn like it used to. It creeps, it lingers, and it irritates the delicate tissues of your upper airways in ways that mimic everything from asthma to anxiety. Silent reflux doesn't shout. It whispers, slowly, persistently, and it shows up where you'd least expect it, in your voice, your sleep, your breath. Unlike typical acid reflux, which causes heartburn and indigestion, silent reflux often skips the digestive symptoms entirely. Instead, it goes after your vocal cords, your sinuses, your esophagus. It dries you out, makes your throat feel raw, triggers what feels like shortness of breath. It's the reason you sigh so much, the reason you breathe heavier at night, the reason your voice cracks during that afternoon call. People lose months, even years, of peace because they're chasing the wrong answers. They get referred to pulmonologists, allergists, even psychiatrists. But what they really needed was someone to ask, "What's going on with your stomach?" There's a woman named Sandra who emailed her story to a support group after nearly a decade of unexplained symptoms. She's 58, a retired teacher, and for 7 years she lived with the fear that she was developing Parkinson's or early-onset ALS. Her hands trembled after eating. She had a persistent cough that no inhaler could fix. Her voice became weaker, and she felt anxious in situations that never used to affect her. One night, she woke up gasping, convinced she was dying. At the emergency room, doctors found nothing. Again. She was told it was anxiety, stress, nerves, but she wasn't satisfied. Sandra began to track her symptoms, not by emotion, but by meals. She noticed that her worst days followed late-night snacks, red wine, tomato sauces, and meals where she ate too quickly or while standing. She discovered that lying down too soon after dinner made her throat burn slightly, but not in the chest. It was higher, behind her voice. When she started using a wedge pillow, eliminating acidic foods, and eating earlier in the evening, her symptoms began to disappear. Her voice came back. Her anxiety dropped. She no longer feared meals. And most importantly, she felt like herself again. The scary part is, most people never figure this out. They treat the symptoms, but not the source. They mask the signals without asking why the signals are there in the first place. And the reason is simple. We don't talk about the stomach as an emotional organ, but it is. It's one of the most sensitive, reactive, and emotionally intelligent systems in your body. And when it's inflamed, compressed, or disrupted, it doesn't just affect digestion. It affects your voice, your breath, your peace. Take a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time you went an entire day without needing to clear your throat? Or feeling that tightness just below your collarbone? When was the last time you felt rested, calm, and silent inside your own body? These are not luxuries. They're signs of a body in balance. And if you've forgotten what they feel like, that's not your fault. It just means the signals have been ignored for too long. One of the biggest contributors to these symptoms is something people never question: posture. Slouching, especially during meals, compresses the diaphragm and reduces stomach capacity. This increases pressure and encourages acid to move upward, even if you don't feel it immediately. Add that to a meal eaten too fast, with poor chewing, while scrolling through your phone or sitting in a car, and you've created the perfect conditions for silent reflux. Not because you ate the wrong thing, but because you did the wrong thing with your body while eating. There's also the breathing. People with silent reflux often adopt shallow, chest-centered breathing patterns without realizing it. Over time, this restricts airflow and weakens the voice, but it also creates the illusion of panic. You breathe like someone who's afraid, and your brain responds as if there's a threat. But the threat isn't external. It's internal. It's physical. And it can be corrected, not with medication, but with awareness. What happens when your voice, your chest, and your emotions are all being manipulated by an inflamed gut? You start to feel like a stranger in your own body. You question your stability. You lose confidence, not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is on high alert day after day, with no clear explanation. That's not anxiety. That's survival. And healing begins when you stop blaming your mind and start listening to your body. Somewhere along the line, you stopped trusting your own body. Not because it failed you, but because no one ever helped you understand what it was trying to say. Every discomfort became a mystery. Every sensation that didn't make sense was labeled anxiety. Every unanswered symptom turned into fear. You stopped looking inward and started looking everywhere else, for diagnoses, for reassurance, for someone to tell you what was wrong. But what if your body was never broken? What if it was just misunderstood? Imagine this. You've just finished lunch. It wasn't heavy. A sandwich, maybe a glass of juice. Within 30 minutes, your eyelids feel heavy. Your heart flutters a bit, and a strange tightness rises into your neck. You try to ignore it. Maybe you stand up to walk it off, but it lingers. You feel like you need to burp, but can't. You clear your throat again. Your breath shortens slightly, and suddenly, you're wondering, is something wrong with my heart? What's rarely explained is that digestion requires energy, a lot of it. After age 50, your body becomes slower to produce the enzymes and acids needed to break down food efficiently. If you've been dealing with years of low stomach acid, a condition called hypochlorhydria, your digestion becomes incomplete. Food sits longer in your stomach. It ferments. It pushes gas and pressure upward. And this can trigger the vagus nerve, producing symptoms that look exactly like anxiety: dizziness, heart palpitation, chest tension, nausea, even chills and shakiness. We're told that reflux is just about what we eat. But the truth is, it's about how, when, and who we are when we eat. Are you eating under stress? In a rush? Distracted? sitting on the edge of your seat, scrolling through your phone or watching upsetting news. That state, that physiological stress mode, shuts down digestion. Your body can't process food properly if it thinks it's under attack. And in that moment, it's not your food causing the symptom. It's your nervous system reacting to poor digestive signaling. Let me share something personal. A man named Peter, 67, once shared that after every dinner, he experienced what felt like a wave of dread. Not quite a panic attack, but a deep sense of unease that would wash over him about an hour after eating. He'd pace the hallway. His hands would sweat. He felt an urgent need to lie down, but lying flat made his symptoms worse. For years, doctors treated him for anxiety. He was prescribed antidepressants, sleeping pills, and even underwent cognitive behavioral therapy. Nothing worked. Eventually, Peter read an article about postprandial hypotension, a condition where blood pressure drops after meals due to improper digestion and nervous system response. But what struck him even more was the link to reflux, especially how undigested food sitting in the stomach could increase intra-abdominal pressure, leading to both reflux and vagal stimulation. He adjusted his habits. Smaller meals, no fluid during meals, eating slowly, chewing more. He stopped lying down after dinner. He raised the head of his bed slightly, and slowly, the dread disappeared. He didn't fix his mind. He supported his gut. The relationship between digestion and emotional health is bidirectional. Just as stress can trigger digestive issues, digestive dysfunction can trigger the sensation of stress. This is why so many people experience morning anxiety, a racing heart, shallow breath, restlessness, without having eaten anything yet. The culprit? Often, it's what they did the night before. A late dinner, a heavy dessert, alcohol, lying flat right after eating. That silent reflux builds overnight, rises into the throat and sinuses, and triggers a stress response before the brain even fully wakes up. You wake up already feeling on edge, and you think it's psychological, but your body has been fighting all night. Your nervous system is alert, your esophagus inflamed, your brain is trying to make sense of the internal discomfort, and the closest label it finds is panic. No one teaches us that anxiety can come from the belly up. We're taught to separate the body into pieces: heart, lungs, brain, gut. But they're not separate. They're systems, and they speak to each other constantly, especially through the gut-brain axis. If your gut is inflamed, unbalanced, or constantly irritated, it doesn't just affect digestion. It affects your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your immune system. Nearly 90% of serotonin, the so-called feel-good chemical, is produced in the gut. So when your digestive system is off, your mood can swing, your energy can drop, your emotional resilience can crumble, all without a single negative thought crossing your mind. This is why treating anxiety only through the mind can fail so many people. Because sometimes the mind isn't the source, it's the mirror. And as we age, these issues become even more invisible. We chalk it up to getting older. But it's not age, it's accumulation. Years of habits that the body could once tolerate. Skipped meals, late dinners, poor posture, stress eating, eventually build up and reach a tipping point. And that tipping point often looks like mysterious symptoms, emotional confusion, and a body that feels foreign. But this can be reversed. Not instantly, not easily, but gently and consistently. By relearning how to eat, when to eat, what posture to hold, what to avoid after 7 p.m., how to breathe again, how to rest your nervous system instead of fight it. These are not small things. They are foundational. And when you begin to rebuild from the ground up, your body remembers how to feel safe again, how to heal. And it all starts with listening to the signals, especially the ones that never made sense. You start to wonder why no one ever told you this, why no doctor mentioned the connection between a tight chest and your last meal, why you were sent to specialists for your breath, for your heart, for your nerves, but no one asked what you ate for dinner. Why a simple question like, "Do you often feel bloated after eating?" was never considered relevant to your anxiety. You were asked about trauma, about stress, about your relationships, but not once were you asked about acid, or gas, or the way your stomach feels in the morning. And that's the real tragedy. Millions of people are medicated for symptoms caused by the digestive system simply because no one was trained to look there. It's not the doctor's fault. It's the system's. Modern medicine has become so specialized, so fragmented, that the body is no longer seen as one. But your body is one. And the stomach, for many, is where the storm begins. There's a growing understanding among holistic practitioners, functional medicine doctors, and nutrition-focused clinicians that many forms of emotional distress have physical roots, and the gut is often the source. They've started calling it gut-centered anxiety. So, not the kind that starts in the brain and settles in the body, but the kind that starts in the belly and climbs upward, hijacking your heartbeat, your breath, your mood, even your sleep. And the signs have always been there. Think about how many times you've said things like, "I feel sick to my stomach when I'm nervous. My gut told me something was wrong. I feel it in my core." These aren't metaphors. They're deeply encoded truths. Your gut and your emotions are inseparable. And this becomes especially evident as you age, when the wear and tear of decades of eating habits, stress, medications, and inflammation catch up with you. The protective lining of your stomach may be thinner. Your esophageal valve may not seal as tightly. The acid your stomach produces might not be as balanced. And all of this can set the stage for symptoms that seem emotional, but are anything but. Let's take an example that almost no one connects to reflux. Frequent sighing. You sigh all the time. You don't know why. You feel like you're trying to release something. Stress, tension, a weight you can't describe. You're not sad. You're not even thinking about anything heavy. You just sigh, and if someone asks, you can't explain it. But here's what's likely happening. Your diaphragm, the muscle that controls your breath, is under subtle pressure from your stomach, which is slightly distended, possibly inflamed, and possibly pushing up against your lungs and throat. You're not breathing fully, and your body keeps trying to reset the breath cycle with a sigh, not to express emotion, to create space, to survive. Now think about throat tightness, that invisible lump, that ball that seems to rise and sit in your throat like a stone you can't swallow. You've probably Googled globus sensation and seen it linked to anxiety. But what most explanations leave out is this. Reflux, even silent, is one of the most common causes of that feeling. Acid creeps up. It irritates the throat, causes slight swelling, even if you don't feel burning. And your brain interprets that inflammation as danger. It creates the sensation of something being stuck. But there's nothing there. Just inflammation and fear. Even your voice becomes part of the story. It cracks. It fades. It tires quickly. You start clearing your throat more often. People ask if you're sick. You're not. You're inflamed. Your vocal cords are being irritated by acid they were never designed to handle. And unless you're a singer or speaker, no one takes it seriously. But it's there. Every word you speak reminds you that something isn't right, and you feel powerless to name it. All of this leads to a subtle but devastating erosion of your self-confidence. You stop trusting your body in public. You avoid meals in social settings. You hesitate before answering the phone because your voice might crack. You avoid eating before meetings or events because you're scared of what might follow. The tight chest, the racing heart, the need to excuse yourself. And with each of these small adjustments, you lose a little more of your freedom, not because of a disease, but because of a hidden trigger that no one thought to mention. And yet, despite all this suffering, you may still hesitate to believe that your stomach could cause so much chaos, because it doesn't feel like indigestion. It doesn't feel like heartburn, and it certainly doesn't feel like something that could ruin your quality of life. But that's exactly what makes silent reflux so dangerous. It hides, it imitates, it misleads, it acts like asthma, like anxiety, like fatigue. And the longer it goes unnoticed, the more damage it does. Not just to your body, but to your identity. You begin to think you're fragile, overly sensitive, too emotional, too reactive, but you're not. You're responding to physical distress with the tools your nervous system has available. It's trying to get your attention, and if no one listens, it just speaks louder. Now imagine something different. Imagine you wake up with a quiet throat, a deep breath that reaches the bottom of your lungs, a voice that feels strong, no pressure, no chest tightness, no racing thoughts before breakfast. Imagine meals that leave you energized instead of drained, conversations without fear, sleep without interruptions. That's not a fantasy. That's what it feels like when your body isn't constantly fighting to protect itself from what you can't see. But how do you get there? It doesn't start with a pill. It starts with awareness, with listening, with unlearning the habits that got you here, and creating new ones that tell your body it's finally safe again. You're not broken. You were just never given the manual for this version of your body. Somewhere between your 40s and 50s, the signals began to shift. What used to be minor discomfort after eating became heaviness. What used to be just a little bloating became chest pressure. What used to be occasional heartburn became chronic throat clearing, shallow breath, and the lingering question, what's wrong with me? The truth is, aging doesn't just bring more candles on the cake. It brings a changing internal landscape. The stomach lining thins. The production of stomach acid declines. The esophageal valve, that small but powerful barrier between your stomach and throat, weakens. And when it does, even small mistakes, like lying down too soon after eating or sipping coffee on an empty stomach, begin to add up in very real, very uncomfortable ways. The body starts asking for help in whispers, and when it's ignored, it begins to scream. But we often don't recognize those screams for what they are. We call them panic. We call them insomnia. We call them mood swings. And sometimes we just call them aging and learn to live with them. But living with silent reflux is not the same as living well, and you weren't meant to suffer in silence. One of the most overlooked parts of this story is how sleep plays a crucial role in your healing, or your unraveling. Many people with reflux, especially silent reflux, don't realize that their worst symptoms emerge during the night. Because when you lie flat, gravity stops helping you. Any lingering acid, gas, or partially digested food in the stomach can more easily creep up the esophagus. That slight backflow, repeated night after night, inflames the throat, irritates the vocal cords, disrupts your breath, and triggers micro-arousal, tiny wake-ups you don't even remember, but that prevent deep, restorative sleep. You wake up tired, not just physically, but emotionally. A body that doesn't sleep well forgets how to be calm. It forgets how to regulate hormones like cortisol and serotonin. It forgets how to repair, so you wake up already anxious, already tense, already behind. And the day hasn't even started yet. So what's the solution? Not a magic pill, not a quick detox, not some expensive supplement from an Instagram ad. The solution begins with your habits, small, intentional changes that build safety, stability, and space for healing inside your body. Start with how you eat. Chew more than you think is necessary. Don't just swallow food, liquefy it with your teeth. Saliva is the first digestive enzyme, and it's powerful. Eating slowly, without distractions, allows your nervous system to stay in a rest and digest state. It tells your gut, you are safe. You can do your job. Look at when you eat. Try not to eat 3 hours before lying down. Give your stomach time to empty so that gravity can do its work. If you must lie down, elevate the head of your bed by 6 to 8 inches, not just with pillows, with an actual incline. This one change has saved people from years of misdiagnosed sleep apnea, heart palpitations, and nocturnal anxiety. Then, there's what you eat. This isn't about eliminating everything. It's about knowing your body. Some people are more sensitive to acidic foods like tomatoes or citrus, others to fats or carbonated drinks. But most of all, it's about recognizing the power of consistency. Skipping meals, snacking late, or eating erratically throws your digestion off rhythm. And an off-rhythm stomach leads to unpredictable symptoms. Don't forget your posture. Slouching after meals, reclining on the couch, or eating hunched over your phone compresses your organs and weakens the pressure balance between your stomach and throat. Sit upright. Walk gently after eating. Breathe deeply into your belly. Let your body expand. These aren't small things. They're acts of daily medicine. One of the most life-changing adjustments you can make? Breath work. Not the dramatic kind you see in performance videos. Just slow, intentional belly breathing. Inhale for 4 counts, pause, exhale for 6 counts. This simple rhythm activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of you that calms inflammation, regulates digestion, and helps your body rest. And over time, this tells your vagus nerve that the world is no longer dangerous, that your heart doesn't need to race, that your body can exhale. For some, healing will also involve testing and support. Working with a practitioner who understands reflux, especially silent reflux, can uncover underlying issues like hiatal hernia, H. pylori infection, or enzyme deficiency. But never forget, no test replaces your intuition. If your body feels off, you are not imagining it. If your symptoms don't match what doctors say is normal, that doesn't make you wrong. It makes you a case worth listening to more deeply. Because you are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not too sensitive. You are a whole human being, made of brilliant systems that crave balance, rhythm, and respect. And when those systems are cared for with patience, presence, and intention, they respond. The body is always listening, always adapting, always trying to heal. And sometimes, the journey back to yourself starts not with a diagnosis, but with a question. What if this wasn't just in your head? What if the real answer was in your gut all along?